and gentlemen, what a privilege to have your company. I am Chris Snell, back again with the latest interview on Apex Predator, where we operate from the mindset that we have an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force. That's what we are. We are an untamed spirit, and ultimately we become our very own army of one. Right into the premise. You know, I see life a lot differently than what other people tend to do, and the thing is laughter truly is the best medicine. And I've got a theory about this. When the Ten Commandments were being etched in stone on Mount Sinai, I'm sure thou shalt laugh should have been included, but there was a big problem. There was no more space left in the tablet, and it had far-reaching consequences, AD, in that now everything is being taken multilaterally. So even the Ten Commandments come with blurred lines. For example, thou shalt not kill does not refer only to the act, but also how we word it, because words have the propensity to kill. So instead of saying, I suck with technology, I should rather say, I am archaeological with technology. Now, if I have to monitor myself by every word I say, then truly, me putting a Pop-Tart in a toaster qualifies me as a chef. The point is, the foibles that we experience is what makes us appreciate one another. And why? Because we can laugh about it. We can laugh about ourselves. The question that needs to be asked, though, is, does laughter have the propensity to heal? Because in my opinion, stand-up especially is the shanty art form of what radio broadcasting used to be. Can humor build bridges? I'd like to think it might, because it makes us think. But can jokes assert influence still in a post-Carlin sphere? That and many other aspects is why I have Holly Shaw here arriving with me. She's a stand-up comedienne, she's an actress and TV host, she's also a dancer, both a hypnotherapist rather, and a performance anxiety coach, and now a 3-time author. Her titles previously have included The Creative Formula, Making Art in the Middle of Madness, as well as her latest title called Queen Years, What Stand-Up Comedy Taught Me About Dealing with Life's Hecklers and Finding Courage in Your Queen Years. I'm led to understand the book releases officially at the end of this month, August 30, and there's also a big bash planned for September next month. We couldn't afford to bring her in a carriage ferried by a farting horse, but ladies and gentlemen, Holly Shaw has arrived. Enchanté, madame.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. I liked some of the things you said. But what is this? Comedy is like the shanty of public radio? Like what? Hang on. Like,
Think about radio back in the 30s when the likes of Jack Benny was a comedian. It was the medium of the art, it was the art form, it was the earthy primal art form of what broadcasting used to be, where it was interpersonal. And you don't get that today as it has become more commercialized.
oh, okay. Well, I mean, stand-up comedy is its own art form apart from radio, I would say.
True.
Because you are live with an audience, you are interacting.
Absolutely.
It's a conversation. So that's why I was like, what is this?
And that's what radio used to be back in the day in the 30s, because back in those days you had audiences with you in the studio. So you were doing a show with the audience over an electronic medium with audiences who were listening at home. And because it had become so commercialized, you don't get that interpersonalness. So what we're both saying is equally valid. Now let's dig into anthropology with you. How is it that you became involved in comedy? Was it something that ran a recurring fabric throughout your family? Was humor something in essence of your family? Was it just a trade that you fell into?
That's a good question. That's funny. My dad was really funny. My dad liked to crack jokes, really dirty ones. And he would, I remember he would call, he had a first family. We were the second litter of puppies, and he had an older son. So when I was growing up, I remember he would call his adult son Michael, my brother Michael, and he would they would like just laugh on the phone for hours telling each other dirty jokes. And I'm over here just getting, the punchlines or like half the jokes, right? Like I didn't get to hear
Mm-hmm.
like the whole, and then just like the extreme, like dying with laughter, and the joy from that I got to hear. So yeah, I guess my dad, now that no one's ever asked that, but my dad he would have liked to think of himself as a funny guy. And growing up, I was definitely kind of like a little bit like a silly kid, like I was definitely goofy. I was always like, when I was a child, I was always running around naked for some reason. I jump into photos like half naked, um,
As
with
you
all
do.
and then I started dance class, and I would learn the dance the correct way, but then I would get kind of bored with that. So then I would like recreate the steps like in a goofy way. Um, so I would say that I was always like goofy and silly, but somewhere along the lines of my acting career, um, because I was a pretty attractive young lady, and I would get kind of cast as like the ingenue, or
Right.
like put into this kind of box of like, this is the kind of roles you're going to do. And I love dramatic acting, so I kind of veered away from comedy. But I wish sometimes that I had like found that track in comedy like earlier, because I feel like it's so much more. I love dramatic acting, but like comedy is like nurturing in a different way.
Yeah, it is.
Comedians.
Absolutely. Who were your influences, if you don't mind me asking, to get into the business?
Oh, so this is kind of embarrassing. No, it's so I actually watched that show on Amazon Prime called Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Really?
Yeah, and it's about, for those of you that don't know, it's about a young woman that she's married, her husband cheats on her, and she gets drunk, and she's been supporting his comedy career. She's actually been writing jokes for him. She's actually been keeping track of the jokes. She's actually very witty and fast and funny herself. She gets drunk, she gets angry, she goes out to an open mic, she starts railing on the mic. Somebody sees her, she starts practicing stand-up comedy, she starts doing comedy. And like, it's not like didn't have earlier influences than that, but something about like, representation really does matter. And growing up, I didn't see as many, there really weren't as many women comedians. So it's not something that was
I have
like
to
on
agree
my
with you.
radar, right? It wasn't on my
Mm.
radar, but seeing like this fantastic, historically probably inaccurate, but lots of fun, beautiful show,
Mm. Mm.
influenced me and made me think that was something that I could see myself doing. And then, looking back, like the pieces were all there. Like I loved um, Richard Pryor. We used to have on VHS
Oh,
tape at home.
yeah.
Yeah.
Live on the Sunset Strip.
Oh my gosh, she's so hilarious. And Whoopi Goldberg's one woman show was
Mm.
profound and funny, but also, just amazing. So I had these influences in there, and I'm just, yeah. And then it was a matter of like, I'm just gonna try it. Like I had no plans to make this a career, but I decided to just try 5 minutes. And then when the other comedians were telling me, "Oh yeah, it's you can go to an open mic any night of the week." I was like, "What? I can get on a microphone and do this every night?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in."
And that everything else just fell into place afterward, and so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. Then come the long years of trying to be funny and figuring out how to tell a joke, and it's a process. Stand-up comedy is
Sure.
a process, but yeah, that's how it all started.
I have to tell you, you struck on something which I greatly respect. If I think about it, the first valid woman comic was Phyllis Diller.
Right.
And then afterwards came Joan Rivers. and then Roseanne Barr. And I love your stand-up comedy in that it's sly humor because you present yourself as this normal woman, but then you come with that punchline and it immediately flips the premise on its head. Because there are some comedians, female comedians especially, referring to Phyllis, who is wacky, but she presents a plain story. You come across as normal, but you present a wacky story. And Steve North, who wrote the great book How to Kill in Comedy, said that is all the impetus of the comedic character. Wouldn't you
Mm,
agree?
sure. Like there, you want there to be some kind of surprise or twist
Mm,
within your. Um, I mean, that's very helpful as a character. Like if you are, I do tell particularly like sometimes shocking or risque things, right? But I walk out, I look like a soccer mom. Like you don't necessarily expect it, right? And
exactly.
right. So that I think that's the fun and that's the surprise. Is that I look nice.
No, you don't look nice. You look gorgeous.
Oh,
Now, you mentioned you began doing open mic nights basically on a whim. So you didn't have any training, you didn't attend any workshops, it was all just basically QBE, qualified by experience.
yeah. Let's see. I did take one workshop. Oh, I failed to remember this guy's name, and he was a good teacher and a great comic. If I remember it, I'll let you know. But like I did, a couple of years in, I did take a workshop, where you get up and you share your material, and then everybody gives you feedback. The teacher gives you feedback, so that kind of
Mm,
thing. And then I did pretty early on, like start leading workshops that were not where I was necessarily teaching them. I was more like a facilitator. So I
right.
called it the comedy lab, and I'd write premises. So I'd write prompts, like writing prompts, and I'd give
Hmm.
everybody 10 writing prompts, and then people would. It was during the COVID actually that a lot of
Oh, right.
this really took. We did it every week. It took hold, but I also did it in person at some points too. But we would write for 30 minutes, and then everybody would get up and share their brand new 3 minutes of comedy that
Ah,
they wrote. So I did do some things like that. But yeah, I mean, comedy really is it. It's one of those art forms that I think it is helpful if you find the right teacher to take like joke writing workshops. That would probably benefit me even now. But it's one of those things where you got to test it out on the audience, and you
mm,
have to find it on the audience. That's why you see comics like constantly trying to get stage time. Like we're always wanting to be on stage because it that's where we're able to like really refine those jokes that we write.
right. This is sort of a two-parter question because you mentioned something which I think should be added on apart from what I'm about to ask you. Jim Gaffigan mentioned on an interview recently that when he steps off a stage doing a set, that he just feels so fulfilled, and that can be based on the premise that hearing the audience laugh and happy, that's where the fulfillment lay. I'm assuming you feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I think that well, I mean, yes, definitely. Of course, the laughter is like what we're there to do and to get, and that's your job. And there's nothing like that hit of dopamine when they're all laughing and you feel the energy of the room and people are happy and
Mm.
they are like, oh, I haven't laughed like that in weeks. It felt so good. Um, and I would just add to that. I'm thinking because I did a show last night in Santa Cruz, and after the show, I had my book there. And the wonderful thing about like having book or merch or something is not like, oh, I'm making so much money selling this thing. It's more that like people will come up and talk to you. And I had like two really intense, deep conversations. One was with a young single mother in Santa Cruz who wanted the book, and she relates to me because I was a single mom, and I'm just like 22 years ahead of her, right? And so, and the conversation we had was like really meaningful, I think, and deep, and it seemed like she wanted something from that connection. And then there was like another young woman that I spoke to, but I feel like for me, not every artist is going to feel this way, but like part of the work is like when you step off stage and you have the opportunity to connect with your audience, and you've been the one up there talking this whole time, right? And they've just been
Correct.
taking you in, but it's kind of nice to let them tell you about themselves too.
Absolutely, and getting that feedback. Then the second add-on that I want to say is if you want to do it, you have to do it for the love of it. You're not going to do it with the hope and expectation that you're going to get famous and make treasure troves of money, come in with a Rolls Royce limousine. You do it because you're passionate about it, aren't you?
Oh no, I'm doing it for the money, man. I'm doing it for the
Come on. You're doing it for the
free train
passion.
ticket, and every once in a while somebody yells out like, "You're not that funny." I'm like, come on, it's a good time. Get to be publicly humiliated. That's the deepest joy. Yeah, no, I
Absolutely.
mean,
I agree with you. I agree with you because when I was a disc jockey, I used to get death threats when I used to work on night shift. Death threats.
what were you
But
saying, Chris?
I didn't say one cotton ticking thing that I wouldn't say in somebody's face.
Yeah,
Hi, welcome to the show. Here's the first record. This record was recorded this year. Da 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 da. But that is the thing about the creative arts. The people don't know what to expect, but you don't know how they're going to take it. They're going to take it well, but they're also going to take it not so well. I said to someone quite recently, life is stitched together at an 80-20 ratio. You get the 80% who get mad about you, and you get the 20% who get mad because of you. The 20% is the most vocal.
yeah,
But the rest assured is both categories are still going to remain listening. So for whom are you catering? For the aforementioned or for the latter?
yeah. I
Tell
mean,
me,
I think you touched on
yeah?
something that is worth like teasing out even more. Is that like
Sure.
the audience will get angry, like laughter. When you're doing comedy, you're touching on the truth. You're looking at
Yes.
the audience, you're saying truths that people don't say, that they won't say. And so it's a poke. It's a poke. And a lot of us will kind of like feel the poke and laugh. Oh my God, that's me. Right? But others will feel the poke and it like pisses them off. So, I've had
Correct.
people come at me on stage, like angry for something that should not have ignited them, but you just never know, right? So I think it's a powerful healing mechanism if you're willing to open your mouth and laugh and let the shame out. Uh,
Absolutely.
but people
And you
do,
give them a modicum to think with.
yeah,
That's also my thought process. If you should say something that should quote unquote upset or shock or offend, the only thing what you're really doing is you're just basically giving them that jab. And I can bet you dollars to donuts that afterward they're going to sit in that corner and they're going to think about that comment again and actually come to the realization, oh, you know what? She is actually telling me to go look in the mirror and take a good long look and check myself before I wreck myself. That's what we do. It's not a bad onus on us. It's rather their inabilities themselves, which you highlight on stage, to paraphrase you. Now tell me something, Harley. Whereabouts did you see a gap in the market that you began to expand to become a hypnotherapist?
Oh, yeah. So that kind of happened organically. When I was in more in the dance part of my life. I'm no longer a professional dancer. I started coaching my friends. I started working with like just other friends I knew. They'd be like, "Hey, you seem to be really good at choreographing. Can you help me, um, with my piece?" And then some of the musicians I knew wanted some coaching. So I ended up kind of falling into this performance coaching world, and creatively helping these folks when people were stuck or stuck on them in their heads. Um, and then I realized I, could use other tools, and I'd always been interested in hypnotherapy. So that's when I went and got a certificate, started studying hypnotherapy and using that with my clients because it's just, honestly, I was kind of doing it already. I just didn't know that's what it was. I was like doing guided meditations and things. So I realized like it was an even more helpful tool to help people at a subconscious level, to really unlock themselves.
Do you delve into neuroplasticity as well?
What do you mean delve into? I mean, we are neuroplastic, but what do you mean by that exactly?
Do you aid in the process of explaining to people that if you change your beliefs, do you change your life, and that you're building more neurons in the brain, etc., etc.?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I am interested in I'm always like learning, right? I think hypnosis is ancient, so it's really thousands of years old. We've been using it, and but science more and more is catching up to, I feel like, to what the healers know to be true.
I
Science is
agree.
like, oh yeah, we proved it. This happens in your brain. It's kind of like we're like, yeah, we know, but thank you for proving it, and it's always interesting to see the science behind, what I know to be possible and human potential.
Absolutely, as well. It always starts with the ancient writings, then the scientific basis, then the scientific jargon, and then the final, you know, diagnosis. But if you look back, the answers are already there. Look, I am as open minded as can be. Um, if it be where you delve into neurocognitive intelligence, hypnotherapy, breath work, um, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, all that razzmatazz, the logic is there. It just needs to be studied and accepted with an open mind. Tell me, with your performance anxiety coaching, do you incorporate humor as well? With your
I
clients, I'm referring to now this time.
I mean, I'm light, and I think it's one. Sure, it's one, but maybe not directly. I mean, it's
Oh,
definitely
sure.
like one mode of my being. A powerful mode of my being. I mean, honestly, I since doing stand-up comedy, the performance coaching has taken a backseat to that because
Oh, I
I
see.
started to understand that, like, I wanted to be the artist, and I needed to
Ah,
pour more of my resources back into, uh, making my own dreams come true, and unlocking myself. So I don't do it as, it's not the primary focus of my life anymore.
I
Um,
see.
and I also find that very rarely have I had somebody see my comedy and then want me as a coach.
One would actually think that's the perfect unique selling point. Well, I mean, I'm one
They,
voice of many.
I know, I just think it's like, kind of it's kind of the irreverence that I display on stage. It doesn't always naturally fit in people's minds with like, oh, this is my support system, right? Even though I am like both of those, irreverent and a support system in my mind and in my life, right? I do. I guess
I
I'm
hear
just saying,
you.
like, they have different personas. Does that make sense?
Well, you've got me there. I mean, after all, everyone has got a public life and a private life.
Yeah.
Now, let's focus from then until now, again. Congratulations on your latest book.
Thank you.
Again, the first two books, Creative Formula and Making Art in the Middle of Madness. Am I wrong to surmise that the first two titles were like self-help books?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Now, how does your latest one differ from the last two? Do you
Yeah.
want to just tell your story, or do you want to provide some advice to your readers?
Right. Well, so it's called Queen Lessons, because there is like the lesson part of it. But this book was really more memoir. Um,
Ah,
it's really it's what stand-up comedy taught me about dealing with life's hecklers and finding courage in your queen years. So I was going through like the beginnings of perimenopause, the hormonal change that women go through, the journey, the ring of fire, call it what you will. It's hell. And all of a sudden I was not as productive or as cheerful or, I was very irritable. Everything just changed it was changing in my brain. It still kind of is. And I was looking for inspiration, and there's not that many books written on perimenopause and menopause. I mean, it's getting more like attention right now. It's kind of a hot topic, which is exciting. But so
cool.
I wanted to write something. I needed to write the book that I needed, you know. It's a memoir. It's got a lot of stories from my youth. It's got a lot of stories from stand-up comedy because I realized stand-up comedy was teaching me to become the woman that I needed to be for the queen years.
Mm,
Irreverent, shameless, bold, asking for what I want, persistent, loyal to myself, all of those things. Stand-up comedy works those muscles on stage. And it really transformed me as a person. So I thought, how interesting would it be to write about that, the stand-up comedy journey, in conjunction with like being a woman and getting older. And this was a book that I wanted to write for the women that came to my show, you know.
fantastic. Do you want to inspire the next generation of women?
Oh, the young queens?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah,
I think you
I
can.
mean, yeah,
Not
I
just
mean,
I think you can, I believe you can.
yeah, I mean, a woman last night that came up to me was a 23-year-old mom, and she was inspired. I had a woman, another young woman last night told me, she was like, you make me actually like look ahead with excitement at like getting a little older. I was like, okay, that feels good, to be like, you don't have to be old. You can. This is what being middle aged could look like. Like here's another possibility of what your life could feel like. And I had people do that for me, and I'm excited to be able to do that for other women.
Please don't see the following as condescending, but I want to say bravo. Congratulations. You don't just aspire or want for change, you ultimately became the change. And there's not many in your shoes who can do that.
Oh, thanks. I don't know that I am the change. I'm just like a pebble in a big pond. But I always think like we don't know the impact that we have on people, right? We can never know really. Like
Sure.
we could do something, somebody could see it. This podcast they could listen to you say something, and it sticks in their head forever, and they use it as a guiding principle. Like we just don't know, and then they pass it on to someone
Absolutely.
else. So it's like it's profound, and it's also like you can feel small and you can feel big, but you just don't really know. And humbling.
Absolutely. Something that ran through my mind as I'm listening to you talk, I was reading an interesting study not too long ago. If I say not too long ago, this might be 3 odd years ago. Question from me to you. Scientifically, how do we take in and retain information more effectively? Do you know how?
With good sleep,
Normally we take in information through the eyes, through our screen, but it's
Uh-huh.
retained better if we take it in through the ear.
Really?
Can you believe it?
I didn't know that.
85% retention through the ear. And that touches exactly on what you and I have just said. We can say something, it goes in through the ear canal, and right there in the cerebral cortex it will stay, and it will germinate, and that is where thought ultimately festers into reality. Unbelievable.
Huh. That's surprising. You gotta tell my mom that, because she's like, I gotta write that down.
Well, we owe it to the paper to write down everything that we hope to aspire to,
Yeah.
or if we want to set goals or visions and whatnot. I'm going to ask you an honest question. Um, you've been very professional, and I want to add as well, you're surprisingly humble, and I appreciate about that, about you as a person. When you look back from then until now, you must be pinching yourself, aren't you? Be
Uh,
honest.
depends on when then is. What do you mean? Like then, like before I did comedy, or
Yeah.
yeah? I mean, here's the interesting thing, which is not going to sound humble. When I was a kid, before I have a preschool timeline when I was a child about like what I wanted to do in life. This was from preschool, and it was like have a kid, or no, go to college, have a kid, become an actor. Like I knew. It's interesting. Marriage was never in there. I skipped it, and I did skip it. I mean, I got married, but then I got divorced. It was a blip, but it's interesting. Like I always knew that I wanted to be a performer. Like it just always was something I was
Me
drawn
too.
to, and I kind of knew I was supposed to. I had made my dad get me an agent. I was like, I'm a star. I need to do this. And I was on my way, like in some ways, and then my life kind of takes you in different paths. But
True.
I kind of always have thought I should, like, that's where I feel at home on stage. That's where I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, is writing, healing, and being on stage. Like basically, creating, performing, and connecting with people. Because when I'm performing, actually, that is part of it's what makes it so great is the connection. So I I I I kind of always knew this is what I was growing into. Like it's not a real surprise. I'm not pinching myself yet. I haven't achieved like enormous success that would make me be like, wow. And even if I did, I would be one of those people that would be like, yeah, I kind of knew that I should be that, yeah. So that doesn't sound humble at all. Um,
No, it does. It
yeah,
does. Because you're stuck, well, not stuck, you are focusing on the here and now.
yeah,
And that's humility. There's a beautiful quote that I want to share with you. You're a reader. It's from the Book of Five Rings. If you've ever heard of it, it was written by Master Swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. And in it, he talks about do not think of victory nor of defeat, but only of cutting and killing, meaning don't look too far ahead. It's too far. Don't look behind you, which we tend to do, especially when we are criticized by peers or criticized by failures themselves. You'll never make it. The risk is too big. What do? We backpedal psychologically, and that's also detrimental. But focus on the present, cutting and killing. And that's exactly what you're doing. But the reason why I asked you, you must be pinching yourself, is you're getting to do what a lot of people would only dare to try and do, or they're too afraid to try and do. Sure, you've got other things as well, but you're doing your passion as you have so aptly elaborated upon, and not many can do that. I'll play open cards with you. I'm also meant to be a performer, and because of the pandemic, the entertainment arena, as it were, in South Africa went from mid-market or media market rather to completely minutia market. There's so many people who had lost their careers because there was never a structure of continuity for people to spread their wings and make a full-time career. And after 2020, 2021 had come and gone, many entertainers were forced to take second jobs, and I was unfortunately one of those casualties. But it made me redefine, what do I want to do now that I would still be wanting to do 3, 5 years from now? So process of reinvention is how I'd like to think about it. But it takes true humility to do that. And I didn't want to say it out loud, and you're more than welcome to add your own 2 cents to this.
Say it out loud.
But there's no such thing as failure. There is no such thing. The reason being is, take the word fail and break it into an acronym. You just take a first action in learning. I've said that so many times. Why? Because you will never know the true extent of how long your arm is creative-wise unless you take that leap into the void. And because of technology, we've got so many means of getting creative like you would not believe. We've got TikTok. We've got, I don't use Snapchat, but let's use Snapchat as well. There's YouTube. There's this, what we're doing here and now. But still, people are afraid to try. And the thing is, and I'm going to say it like it was said unto me when I did this professionally on FM, you have an unequivocal right to make a fool of yourself. Because who are you judging? Who do you feel is judging you, I should rather ask?
Mm-hmm.
You. Make sense?
Yeah, I think you touch on a really good point that I like to talk about too, which is, failure is part of the journey to whatever it is that you're creating. Like, you, as much as you're willing to be uncomfortable or fail, I'm using air quotes,
Sure.
is how much like success you'll see, right? And that's one thing that stand-up comedy has really taught me, is that you get up there and you eat it. You eat pavement again and again and again, and until you are almost immune to it. Like, it
I
gets
agree
to the
with you.
point where like you so are detached from it. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means, oh, this particular joke might need some help. It's a discernment rather than a judgment call on yourself.
Well said.
You keep, you get to the point where it doesn't hurt. It doesn't, well, maybe it hurts a little bit. It doesn't mean anything. But it shouldn't mean anything about you. And you come to learn that, and it becomes almost like a revelry. When you see a comic kind of like stinking it up, and they just like, well, I'd like this, so I'm going to keep going with it. And it's almost like a delightful, you can actually turn audiences to agree with you just because you're so in love with the idea, and or they just are like, okay, this is funny that this person like is just going to buckle down on this one idea. But I think what you said is right. In a sense, there's no failure, because at what point are you judging it a failure, right? We can always
absolutely
keep the point and decide it's at what point do you end the story. And if we're still here, we're still creating, the story is still going.
Exactly. We're the best movie that we'll ever see in this life. And the end credits only roll the day that you close your eyes. And I can't exemplify this more than just keep your eyes and your ears open. Take in what works and eliminate what doesn't. And especially in the latter, forget the naysayers. They mean nothing. Do they pay your bills? Nope. So, That's all I have to say with regards to that. I just had to shoehorn that in there. Um, and then lastly, and this more or less touches on what we had spoken about now, how synchronistic. Patton Oswalt, the famous stand-up comedian, mentioned that performers should have an outlook on their creative vision and not have an expectation on the industry advancing them. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Can you say that again? An outlook on their creative vision and not.
Expect the industry to advance them.
Yeah.
I have to say, when I heard that in an interview with Michael Rosenbaum recently, I was shocked when he said that. Because we enter this industry being entertainment, hoping that I've always characterized it in the sense of you have 3 years to start to establish yourself like a business, and then 5 years you start to begin to reap the fruits. But then after those 3 years, and you're still busy doing the toilet at the back of the restaurant, then you think, oh, life is unfair. But the fact is, we need to craft our own creative vision and set goals accordingly, I think is what he was trying to say. And measure your success from going on there. And that's something I believe you touched on.
Well, I think it's important to focus on the work. And I can get distracted. There's certain doors that I haven't been able to unlock here in the Bay Area that I'm still excited to see if I can get in that pass at that club or whatever. And I think you can get really caught up on like, I'm not advancing the way my peers are. Why?
That can happen, hey? I made that mistake.
From it. And it's like there's many yes, there are gatekeepers. There are, and it's infuriating, but there's many. And also, there is opportunity to create your own arena. It's not easy. It's a little easier. Yeah, it'd be easier if somebody just said, hey, you're talented, come perform, right? But I think those things happen when you focus on the creative work and you say, okay, but am I the artist that I honestly would want to hire at this moment? Am I doing the work that I really want to be doing? The jokes coming out of my mouth, are they, at the end of the day, is this what I want to be remembered for? And if the answer is still no, then we still have work to do, right? And I think that's the fun, is being open to and listening to that creative channel that is yours and yours alone, and that you get to hone in on, and that you get to receive ideas from, and letting that be the guide. Like, what's higher than that? Why am I Joe Schmo over here who's getting a power trip off of like keeping me out of his room? Like, what? I shouldn't be listening to him. I should be listening to your own direction. It's really being in touch with that. Would you agree? Do you have like your own sense of creative direction? And
I'll give you the summary. For too many years, I thought I should listen more to other people who I thought knew more than me. So I stepped into that trap. What started as a journey of being humble, from humble beginnings, unfortunately, I became a sponge for accepting what people spoke out over me. But to my defense, I was a lot younger then. But maturing now, I'm starting to trust myself more in that I can separate the corn from the chaff. And if people want to invest in my life, I can sense that they're being genuine. But if they're not, I will eliminate them. That's part one. Part two, yes, I am trusting my creative vision, but it's evolving. It's not something that came fully matured overnight. Like you, I want to be in the humor business. I want to do stand-up. I spend every day writing jokes, self-taught, like you, and I love it. I enjoy that creative process. But here's where I struggle a little bit. I'm still struggling with the fact of that thing that I wrote. Is it, but it's a good struggle, let me add as well. That what I wrote, is it perfect or does it need to be rewritten? That's the first creative hoop, and I welcome it. And then secondly, getting the space. But I believe that there is a time and a place for everything. So when it will happen, it will happen. But in the meantime, I'm preparing for it, and I'm experimenting in conversation. And I've got a pretty good eidetic memory for experiences, what works for some and what works for doesn't, because I work with people in the corporate sector.
Wait,
I see you want to speak, so let me shut up.
Bits on
Yes?
people in conversation? Is that what's happening? You're doing bits on people?
Yeah, and it works. It works
Uh-huh.
like a charm. But the trick is to make it informal, not to act it, not in comedic character.
Right.
And if I get crickets, then I look back at it. You know what? Maybe I should have said it this way. Okay, I'll make a note. And then other times if it gets a laugh, then I'll say, okay, great. That note I'll keep.
I see. So before you even get up on the open mic stage, you're already testing your jokes.
Absolutely. And I actually took it from someone out of Canada who did that. But the trick is not to make it seem that way.
Right.
And plus also...
Nobody wants that.
No. And the thing is, and you'll agree with me on this, because you've elaborated about this, it's not always to be on. You need to separate your two lives. If you're always on, and you're always trying to think up material, and how people are going to perceive me, you're going to make yourself screwed up. And that's unfortunately what I did in my radio days, and a lot more famously, Robin Williams, of course, was always on, coming out with material, churning out material consistently.
Yeah.
Which ultimately became his undoing.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be that guy who's always doing bits on people. Or, when you hang out with comedians, sometimes it can be a little exhausting because we're all like shooting off jokes at each other all the time. So it's nice to have friends that are not stand-ups because, I have that fun. Like, I enjoy that. Jokey, of course, but it's nice to have other parts of myself,
Yeah.
like a deep conversation and actually with some gravitas and be real and not joke about it. So it's good that you recognize that.
Well, it also makes you versatile as a person. It makes you more well-rounded. Another mistake I made is that I didn't spread my wings a little earlier in my life. And I think it's because of the programming that we often tend to face as children, because your parents want you to follow a secure life, as it were. When you finish school, become a lawyer, become a doctor, and then you believe them. But unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. So at the end of the day, opening yourself up to a sense of normality and playing to your strengths makes you more versatile as a person. Also, to add on to what you have to say. Holly, this has really been something special. Again, congratulations on your new book. For reference again to our audience, the free version, correct me, comes out August 30. And then there's also a big bash coming up September 19th. Tell us a little bit about that before we go.
Yeah, so there will be a free download for the ebook version of Queen Lessons that you can download on August 30th. And then I'm doing a great show in Santa Rosa. I mean, your podcast is far and wide. I don't know how important that is. But I'm doing a live comedy show in Santa Rosa September 19th at the Barrel Proof Comedy Lounge. And, you can find that. You can find that and all kinds of information, connections to the book at hollyshawcomedy.com.
Fixed up. And again, her books are The Creative Formula, Making Art in the Middle of Madness, brand new book, Queen Lessons, My Years, What Stand-Up Comedy Taught Me About Dealing with Life's Hecklers and Finding Courage in Your Queen Years. Again, if you did not hear that properly, check her out on her website, hollyshawcomedy.com. tour dates and a complete bio also included. And she's also got a YouTube channel, Holly Shaw Comedy, on YouTube, which you can check out some of her stand-up as well. Holly, you're a gem. We hope to have you back sometime soon. You're a wonderful, deep person.
Thank you. It was so fun talking to you.
Thank you, madam. And with that, folks, comes the show to an end. I'm Chris Nell. Again, Holly Shaw was my guest today, reminding you that we will always operate within the mindset of being an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, and ultimately we become our very own army of one. We'll see you next time. Make it sting.